What's up guys, and welcome to my 16th tutorial in my PHP backend. And in this tutorial I'm going to do some refactoring and also look a little into responses from the API. So the issue we're having right now is that the color controller inherits the database interface because the way we implemented it before, and previously our database interface was our interface to the database, which is kind of not true at the moment because we have the iRepository, which is our repository pattern to our database. So instead what we want to do is we want to create a new class called controller, and this will be the base class for all the controllers as we get along and get more controllers. So let's call it controller, and it'll be in the namespace, controllers namespace, obviously. So PHP Storm actually fixes this automatically for you, and it's going to be an abstract class because we don't want it to instantiate the controller as an own instance. We just want to inherit it in all the specific controllers, like color controller, for example. And what we can do is we can take everything that's in here and copy it and then just paste it in here. And now the SQL repository is no longer in the same namespace as the consumer. So in here we need to create a new use statement. So we need to import it. So it'll be app and then data, and it is SQL repository, like this. So now this is fine. And in here we want to inherit the controller base class instead, like this. And this file we don't need anymore, so we can delete it. So let's delete it. Alright, so whenever you create new files, you need to run composer dump autoload in order to generate a new autoload file, so you can import it in the files. And we don't need to use this import statement here, use, anymore, so you can remove it as well, because the controller is in the same namespace as the color controller. You can see here they're both the namespace controllers. But we need to run composer dump dash autoload. Like this, and now when we run it we should get some data. So we do. I'm trying the get all colors endpoint now. So right now we just var dump the array like this, and when you build an API, obviously you want to have some kind of formatted output like JSON or XML, and I'm gonna go with JSON because it's the most commonly used at the moment, I think. And so we need to make some kind of uniform way of outputting our responses from the controllers. So in my base controller, I'm going to create a new function called response, and it'll be protected. So protected function response, like this, and it's going to take two parameters. We're going to take something called code and something called message, so MSG. And then what we want to do is that we want to set the HTTP header. So HTTP response header, and we want to set it to the code. So this will be the HTTP code. And then also we want to echo out the message. So like we also want to echo it out as JSON. So I'm going to use JSON decode function, or JSON encode, I mean, like this. So let's try it out and use it in one of our controllers. So now you can use it with this, and then response. And then I'm going to create 200 and colors like this, and I'm going to remove the var dump. It doesn't know what HTTP response header is. Let me just look up. This is the function that we want to call HTTP response code. So I used the wrong function, like this, and then code. Stack Overflow is my friend. So now you can see you get the output in JSON, which is kind of nice. So also another implementation that I made is the response code. So now I get 200 back as usual, but if I want to do some error handling, for example, put out a 404, I can just do like this, and now I should get a 404. And you can see here the HTTP status code is set to 404 not found, and we can also set it to 500, and you can see it's pretty dynamic. So now we can do some basic error handling where you output uniform responses to the API consumers. And also we have a base controller where we can gather stuff like responses and also keep our repository pattern here. So I hope you guys liked it, and I'll see you on the next tutorial.